What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome back to my channel. And if you are a subscriber to the channel, hey, I'm sorry that I have been gone for so long. I've just been focusing a lot on school stuff. You know, it's my senior year of high school. I'm trying to push through it all. So it means a lot that you guys have stuck around. And the channel has continued to grow. Last time I looked, we were at 125 subscribers. So thank you guys so much. And before we get into this video, hey, like the video, subscribe. If that subscribe button is red, it means you haven't subscribed. Hit the notification bell as well so you are notified when I upload. I'm going to start to upload a little bit more as the school year here is coming to an end. And then, of course, share the video with everyone you know. I'm trying to grow the channel as big as possible, so it would mean a lot. You can share the video with everyone who likes college football as much as you and me. And with that being said, today, among stories about the college football playoff, looking at expansions and then deciding, no, we like where we are. This is where it's pushed me over the line. I like the college football playoff. I think it's better than the whole BCS scenario. However, I think it can be majorly improved. This is me fixing the college football playoff. You may need to ask, well, you just said you like the college football playoff. Why do you think it needs fixing? Well, there are a couple things. First off, there's zero representation for the group of five, which I don't think is fair at all. A lot of the group of five teams that have come out in previous years have been really good. See UCF, Memphis, Cincinnati, Western Michigan came out undefeated. I mean, there have been so many teams in the playoff era coming from these group of five teams, more notably in the American Conference, that are really good. Louisiana, and if you look ahead to this year, Louisiana and Coastal Carolina are supposed to be good. They're in the Sun Belt. You have Cincinnati in the American. Ball State could surprise people in the MAC. You always have Boise. Like, there are so many teams that do not get representation in the committee room. It also means that independents like Notre Dame are expected to have 100% perfection. And see, last year when Notre Dame was in a conference, they went undefeated in regular season play, and then when they had a loss in their conference championship, they're like, yeah, we'll still put them in because there was a conference championship. Normally, Notre Dame would never get into the playoff if they weren't undefeated. That's the same thing with BYU and Liberty and all these other independent teams. And Cinderella stories never have a shot. See Minnesota and Baylor in 2019. I mean, it doesn't matter if they won or lost their conference championship. Heck, won or lost their division. Well, speaking of Minnesota there, they had no shot at getting into the college football playoff. There was no realistic chance of that happening. I mean, it's just ridiculous in a group that's dominated by these four teams, as we're going to see here in a little bit. It needs fixed. Now, we're coming into the 8th year of the college football playoff, and only 11 teams have made the college football playoff. Only 11. These are the 11 teams that make the college football playoff. Only 5 of those have made the college football playoff more than once. And then even then, only 4 of them have even won a national championship game. So you can see the issue here, right? It's dominated by the higher class teams, which I guess isn't a big surprise. But the fact of it is that there's bias in it, and there's the money talks in programming. And I know that that's a huge thing, is like everyone would see Ohio State, Bama, Clemson, and Oklahoma. That's the 4 that come to mind every single year. We look at the years of the college football playoff. We're coming into its 8th, so there have been 7 years. Teams with a minimum of at least 1 bid, I just showed you, 11. Teams with 2 or more bids, that's 5. Teams with at least 1 national semifinal win, that's 6. And teams with at least 1 national title is 4. So if you are skipping ahead in the video, then there you go. That's just what I showed you on the previous slide, put out in words, in case you didn't understand. So how are we going to fix it? I present to you my 8-team playoff, and the bowl games are going to rotate in pairs every year. So you'll keep the Orange Bowl, Cotton Bowl together. You'll keep the Fiesta Bowl or Peach Bowl together. And you'll keep the Rose Bowl and Sugar Bowl together. This would just, I don't know, I just threw bowl games wherever. You have the college football playoff quarterfinals, which for me are going to be 2 weeks after the conference championships. And then the college football playoff semifinals will take place on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve, more likely than not New Year's Day, and then the following second Monday. So in case you're confused about that schedule here, let me show you here. So here would be a schedule for this year if they were to have an 18 playoff. So your conference championships are on the 3rd and 4th this year. So then you fast forward 2 weeks. We'll play on the Saturday and Sunday. So December 18th and December 19th, you'll have 2 games on each day as your playoff quarterfinals. And then you'll skip ahead to January 1st or New Year's Day, which also happens to be about 2 weeks later. So there are your playoff semifinals. This year they're on New Year's Eve. So again, like you can go back and forth on that. And then the national championship would be on January 10th as the following second Monday. So not the 3rd, but the 10th following second Monday. So now you say, great, well, now you have a plan in place. You know how many teams are going to be in it. How are you going to decide those teams? Well, first, we have to fix a very important issue. We have to fix the scheduling. You'll see up in a top corner of your screen opposite my face cam, as the Notre Dame is included in the Power 5. I'll explain what that means here in a little bit. But fixing the scheduling, no more divisions. Get them out of here. I want them socially distanced away from my life forever. Conferences are now going to work like college basketball, where it's just a conference. That's it. There's no east-west. There's no north-south. There's no Atlantic, coastal. Get rid of it. Stinky. I want it gone and out of my life forever. It'll be a 12-game, 3 non-conference game schedule for all teams. I don't care who you are. No more playing FCS teams. No more of the Alabamas and the Auburns and the Texas A&Ms and maybe even at times the Michigans, or I can't remember the last time Ohio State played an FCS team. I think it was Florida A&M in 2014. But aside the point, no more playing FCS teams. It's a guaranteed win every single time for the higher class teams. Get it out of here. It'll be a 9-game conference schedule, Power 5. All right, so this is talking about non-conference. Teams in the Power 5, this is what I'm thinking as of right now. There might be scheduling issues with it, in which case we can adjust a little bit. But more often than not, they will play 2 other Power 5 teams and 1 Group of 5 teams, not in their own conference, in non-conference based on preseason ranking and expectations. So, for example, we'll take my favorite team, the Ohio State Buckeyes. This year we're slated to play Oregon, and Tulsa, and Oregon, Tulsa, and Akron. So let's get Akron out of there because that's pretty much going to be a win for Ohio State. We'll keep Oregon and keep Tulsa because Tulsa could be decent this year, and we'll keep Oregon because that could be a top 10 matchup. Then we'll probably play another middle-of-the-road Power 5 team. I don't know, maybe throw in an Auburn. Sure, we'll play Auburn as well. So there you go. That's kind of how it would look, like just based on preseason ranking, expectations, who's going to be good, who's going to be not, what people want to watch, etc. And it's going to be the vice versa for the Group of 5. So more often than not, the Group of 5 will play 2 Group of 5 teams and 1 Power 5 team. That way the Group of 5 gets a taste of the Power 5 and this and that, so on and so forth. Conference play will also be based off of last season's standings. This is where it could get a little tricky, but I think it's pretty easy to understand. So the conference championship will be the 2 teams with the best conference record, of course. So how that's going to work, the conference play based off of last season's standings, is we'll take the Big Ten. So you had Ohio State and Northwestern finish the top 2. Great. Actually, scratch that. Let's just take Ohio State. You're going to go down the list and look at the 9 teams directly below them from last season. So I believe that would be Northwestern, Iowa, Minnesota, Indiana, Maryland, Penn State, Wisconsin, and Purdue. That would be their conference schedule, although you would keep rivalry games. So Ohio State, Michigan would be kept. Michigan State would be kept. So once you fill all the rivalries in, you look at last season's standings and say, okay, besides rivals, these were the best teams from last season. That's who they're going to play. That eliminates the Ohio State versus Rutgers or the Ohio State versus Nebraskas, and where it's really a no competition game. In which case, the worst team in the worst team after filling in rivalry games would play the 9 teams, or the 9 or so teams directly above them. And that just eliminates a lot of the powerhouse versus you're never going to win anything schools, you know? Yeah. So we've fixed the scheduling. Great. Here's how the 8 spots are going to work. 5 spots are going to be given to each of the Power 5 conference champions. If you win your conference, you should be in, especially without divisions. Very, very simple. And then 1 spot's going to be given to the Group of 5 conference champion with the top ranking or the top record. They usually correlate. And then there are 2 at-large bids. At-large bids will go to conference runner-ups and independents. And what if teams have similar records or similar opponents, you might be asking? Here's where tiebreakers come in. Strap yourselves in. This is where it gets fun. Tiebreakers for the at-large teams will start with the only loss is in their conference championship game. They are in automatically, unless, of course, there are three or more of those teams, but that's unlikely in and of itself. Conference runner-up, of course, unless they're, or if their only loss was not in the conference championship game. Again, they won't get it automatically if 2 or more losses in conference play, yada, yada. Only loss to the conference champion. So if no conference runner-up, if we see no conference runner-up, every conference runner-up has like 3 losses, 4 losses, like one team really dominated each conference, that's unlikely in and of itself. And then you get to 4 and 5, which is just best conference record, and then strength of schedule and record. For the independents, if an independent's undefeated, they're in. They should get in. They maybe not have won a conference champion, but hey, they played a lot of Power 5 teams. They played some good Group of 5 teams. This especially applies to Notre Dame. If an independent has 1 loss to a conference champion, they could possibly get in, but they have to be anywhere from 10-2 to 12-0, just because there's no conference championship allowed. And I think 10-2 is the absolute minimum. Just because, hey, 2 losses, it still shows you're a good football team. I mean, you had a good season. The criteria for further tiebreakers: record against common opponent and strength of record, strength of schedule. What we'll use the most, I'm anticipating, if this scenario were to play out, is your only loss in the conference championship game and your conference runner-up. So there you are with that. We're going to look at an example season with records and common opponents based loosely on this year's schedule, along with the schedule fixing, where teams would play the top team, or teams that finished top of their conference would play the top teams in the regular season, not just in the conference championship game. So here we are. Who's going to get into the college football playoff in a simulated example season with an 18 playoff set by my rules? Let's find out. I'm going to slightly base teams off of where they're supposed to be at this year. So here we go. Here are your conference winners. You have Alabama, the SEC champions, at a perfect 13-0, getting that #1 spot. They have key season wins over Miami. Of course, they play them in non-conference this year. Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and then Georgia twice, of course, with no losses, once in the regular season for Georgia, and then once in the conference championship game. The #2 team in the land will be the Ohio State Buckeyes. Winning the Big Ten, they'll have key wins over Oregon, Wisconsin, Penn State, Michigan, and Indiana in the conference championship game, but they did lose to Indiana in the regular season on the road in Bloomington, so that was their 1 loss, but still a very good season. Indiana made it all the way to the Big Ten championship game. We will go ahead and put Ohio State right there. Clemson, again, 12-1 will be #3 as ACC champions. They will have key wins over Miami, Virginia Tech, once to North Carolina in the regular season, and another one to North Carolina in the conference championship game. But they did lose their very first game of the season to the Georgia Bulldogs. So that is where they stand. Big 12 champs will be the Oklahoma Sooners. We'll have key wins over Texas, Oklahoma State, and Iowa State in the Big 12 championship game, but they did lose to Iowa State in the regular season, ending up 12-1. The American Athletic and Group of 5 champions will be the Cincinnati Bearcats with key wins over Indiana, Tulsa, and UCF twice, once in the regular season, once in the conference championship game. But their only loss of the season are to the pesky Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Cincinnati would get in as the Group of 5 winner. Pac-12 champions will be the USC Trojans, getting that 6th seed. with key wins over Stanford, Colorado, BYU, and Oregon in the conference championship game, a loss to Oregon in the regular season, and to, again, the pesky Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Here are your conference winners, and you see we already have 2 matches decided. Oklahoma is going to be playing Cincinnati, and Clemson is going to be playing USC. There you go. 2 games already matched up. Now we just have to see what 2 teams are going to be getting the top 2 teams in the land. And here are your conference runner-up. And in this scenario, I simplified it. No independent's going to have less than 2 losses. We'll say Notre Dame loses to, I don't know, Stanford and Miami. We can say they lose there. Sure, why not? You have Iowa State, who's the Big 12 runner-ups. Key wins over Iowa, Oklahoma State, Texas, and Oklahoma in the regular season, but they did lose to them in the conference championship game. Indiana being 11-2, with runner-up in the Big 10. Iowa, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, key wins for them, but they lost to Cincinnati and lost to Ohio State in the conference championship game. Georgia SEC runner-ups, key wins over Clemson, Auburn, and Florida, but they've lost to Bama twice, once in the regular season, once in the conference championship game. Similar with North Carolina, also 11-2, key wins over Virginia Tech, Florida State, Miami, and Notre Dame. And they will have lost to Clemson twice, once the regular season, once in conference championship game. Pac-12's runner-up in the scenario, the Oregon Ducks, key wins over Cal, Colorado, Washington, and USC in the regular season, but they will lose to Oregon State, Stanford, and then USC again in the championship game. So a couple bad losses there for Oregon. And then the group of 5 runner-ups and Sun Belt champions, Louisiana Raging Cajuns, losses to Texas and Liberty, but they did beat Ohio, App State, Arkansas State, and Coastal Carolina in the Sun Belt championship game. So here are your conference runner-ups. What the committee will do now is they will pick the best at-large team to get a bid, and they will immediately eliminate one of those. And then they will make that known to the public, leaving 4 left to be decided on decision day. So the one that gets in is Iowa State. As we established in the tiebreakers, if your only loss comes in the conference championship, you are in. So the Iowa State Cyclones will get their first ever bid to the college football playoff, with their only loss getting revenge from Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game. And what team do we get rid of? Easily you get rid of the team with the most losses. Oregon was 10-3, and they had a bad loss to Stanford and even maybe a bad loss to Oregon State, and their strength of record and strength of schedule maybe might have been below average. Yes, they did lose to oh, no, I'm sorry. So OSU back there was Ohio State, not Oregon State. My apologies. Oregon would lose to Ohio State, Stanford, and USC in the championship game. My apologies on that. But anyways, they had a bad loss to Stanford, and their strength of record is below average. So Oregon is out. Iowa State is in. Now you got the last 4 teams. Let's get rid of one of them right away. All of these teams are 11-2, and Louisiana just has to be out due to the strength of schedule. I mean, in the Sun Belt, it's not really that fault. They probably played some great football. Maybe if they hadn't lost to Liberty, they wouldn't have been the first team out, being 12-1. But being 11-2 in the Sun Belt, maybe didn't play a great non-conference and lost to your 1 Power 5 opponent. Louisiana is out. Let's eliminate one other person too. Georgia was a team that beat Clemson in the regular season, and North Carolina lost to them twice. And due to the common opponent, North Carolina is going to be out. So now the last spot. It comes down to Indiana and Georgia, and here's the scenario in play. Georgia lost to Alabama twice, but Alabama is the only undefeated team in the nation. Indiana, on the other hand, lost to Cincinnati and Ohio State, 2 teams that are already in the college football playoff, but Indiana gave Ohio State its only loss of the season. So do you value the win over Ohio State more than Georgia beating everyone else but the best team in college football? I would take your pick here. You pick whoever you want. I'm going to reveal my pick here in a little bit. I don't want to see any hate in the comment section because it's just a simulation. But I feel like what a lot of people would want to see is if Georgia were to get the nod here, it would set up Alabama and Georgia part 3. Well, if Alabama's already beat Georgia twice. Why wouldn't they do it a third time? I mean, they are the best team in college football after all. So due to that logic, I would say that Georgia would be out due to the strength of record and committee decision. I think that win for Indiana over Ohio State pushes them in. And in this scenario, here are your 8 teams. Alabama would play Indiana. Bama would probably win that game. Oklahoma would play Cincinnati. I'd bet on Oklahoma. Ohio State, Iowa State. That would be a fantastic game. I would lean towards the Buckeyes. And Clemson, USC, I would lean towards Clemson. But again, it creates room for chaos. You don't know. The highest seeded teams, 1, 2, 3, 4 in that order, get the pick of where they want to play for the available quarterfinal locations. So in this scenario, when we looked at the bracket earlier, it was the Peach Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, and help me out, guys, the Orange Bowl. There we go. So Alabama would get to pick where they want to play first. More often than not, they're probably going to want to say the Peach Bowl because it is close to Georgia where they play. You will have Alabama take the Peach Bowl. Then it goes to Ohio State. Where would they want to play? Ohio State likes to play in Arizona. They like that Fiesta Bowl, so we'll have Ohio State take the Fiesta Bowl here. Then we'll look at Clemson, whether they would want to play in the Cotton Bowl or the Orange Bowl. Alabama might even take the Orange Bowl, but we're going to say take the Peach Bowl. And you would think Clemson, to get the most field advantage possible, would want to go ahead and take the Orange Bowl, and then that would leave Oklahoma with the Cotton Bowl. So again, it's just the higher seeded teams, because they just did better, they won their conference and all that, they get to pick where they get to play, and the 4 seed is left with whatever happens. But there you go. That is me fixing the college football playoff. I hope the college football playoff committee can see this. Again, that relies on you guys, though. Like this video. It helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. It gets more people out to see this video when they search for topics like this. Also, subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to grow the channel as big as humanly possible. So please do me a favor. Hit that red subscribe button if you are not subscribed already. Turn on the bell so you know when I upload. Next video coming out is going to be my NFL first round mock draft, as the draft is set to take place later this week. Also, if you haven't yet, leave a comment down below. Tell me if you like the way that I fixed the college football playoff. Tell me what you think I could improve on, etc., etc. I might make a video on this every single year, updating my thoughts. Possibly not, but hey, it's an idea. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to share the video. Remember to subscribe, like, do all that stuff that I just said. Also remember, play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see all of you guys later with my first round NFL mock draft. Goodbye.